Chapter 3.5 In-Flight Reverie continues. Thank you for coming back to my bedtime mumbles. Sorry, I got carried away in the last video, daydreaming about myself as Rose, living the life of a first-class passenger on a Titanic-style ship, in the spotlight, descending the grand staircase like a Disney princess. How nice. How wonderful. And then, of course, that incident, ordering a 3-course meal from the flight attendant, casually requesting a serving of crème brûlée for dessert. I felt like sneaking into the aircraft lavatory and hiding for the rest of the flight. Though this might be considered a serious inconvenience to other passengers with urgent nature calls and quite possibly a breach of Civil Aviation Safety Regulation, CASR, Part 121, Carriage of Passengers, which strongly discourages prolonged, non-essential occupation of the lavatory. Anyway, enough recap. Let's get back to our flight from Melbourne to Tokyo. Back to our imaginary trip if we were traveling 100 years ago on a Titanic-style voyage. I'll admit, I had a wonderful time imagining myself as Rose, traveling as first-class passenger. But now, looking at the tiny seatback screen directly in front of me and the plastic meal tray beneath it, decidedly not silver-plated, I have to be honest, if I were boarding the Titanic, I'd be far more likely to be Jack than Rose. So let's set aside the wild, out-of-my-league fantasy and slip into something more realistic. Still a daydream, yes, just one with at least one toe dipped in reality. So, goodbye, my elegant Edwardian lady suit. Farewell, my sparkling violet silk gown. And most reluctantly, farewell to my beloved heart-of-the-ocean necklace. Oh, that necklace really is stunning. Okay, here I am now. Jack, 3rd class, steerage. No porters, no grand trunks, no string quartet. Just me, a worn satchel, and maybe a pencil to sketch fellow passengers in exchange for a few coins. In Titanic 1997, when Rose steps out of the 1912 Renault Type CB Coupe de Ville at the dock, her first impression of the ship is underwhelming. She looks up at the towering hull and says, "I don't see what all the fuss is about." For her, it's just another luxury liner in a long list of voyages. Jack's first impression? We never really get one. Why? Because at that exact moment, he and his friend Fabrizio were buried in smoke and noise inside a cramped Southampton bar. Elbows on the table, eyes locked on 2 Swedish sailors, Olaf and Sven. Wait, not those Olaf and Sven. Not the snowman and the reindeer from 2013 Disney movie Frozen. Wrong movie. Different studio. I mean the other Olaf and Sven, the Swedish sailors from 1997 movie Titanic. Yes, you two. Good. All right, back to the story. Jack's at the table, his whole body tense, eyes burning with focus. The stakes? Higher than any poker game he's ever played. A few coins, a battered old watch, a Swiss Army pocket knife. But above all, 2 third-class tickets aboard the Titanic. A one-way pass to America, a fresh start. This wasn't just cards. This was destiny in the shuffle. Winner takes it all, future included. The cards slap down, Jack's full house against Sven's 2 pairs. This winning hand will carry Jack back home to America and take his friend Fabrizio toward his very first glimpse of the new world. However, there was no time left for them to celebrate. With less than 5 minutes to departure, Jack and Fabrizio bolt through the streets, reach the dock breathless, and scramble aboard in the nick of time. No slow-motion glances, no poetic pause, just a mad dash fueled by a lucky hand, fresh tickets, and the promise of a life ahead. Back to my imaginary voyage. If I was traveling 100 years ago from Melbourne to Tokyo as a steerage passenger, what would be my first impression, standing on the dock and looking up at this floating city? I'm not much of a gambler, and I certainly wouldn't risk my ticket to the new world in a poker game. My ticket would be kept somewhere safe, tucked deep inside my coat or hidden in my boot if needed. I'd arrive on time, probably early, queuing patiently, with plenty of moments to simply look. From the dock, the Titanic-style ocean liner would tower above me like an entire city tipped on its side, gleaming in the morning sun. Her four funnels would stand like proud sentinels. Polished brass would catch the light in sharp flashes. Gangways would stretch toward her flanks like bridges to another world. I'd feel small, but in the best way. The kind of small that reminds you you're about to become part of something much bigger than yourself. This wouldn't just be a ship, it would be a promise. A promise of movement, of horizons unfolding, of stepping into a future I could only dream about. From Melbourne to Yokohama, across the Pacific, south to north, this vessel would carry me to a place I'd never been, in a way I'd never traveled. I'd be giddy, thrilled, and just the tiniest bit awestruck. Of course, the class segregation would start before boarding. On the Titanic, first-class passengers strolled up their own spacious gangway, welcomed by liveried stewards and floral arrangements. Second class had their own modest but dignified entrance, and third class, steerage, queued in long lines, funneled into narrow gangways after enduring document checks, ticket inspections, and even lice examinations. Yes, if you were steerage, you were checked for lice before boarding. Fail and you were denied entry. Meanwhile, first and second class passengers, and even their dogs, skipped this entirely. Fair? No. Predictable? Absolutely. Jack avoided this indignity entirely by arriving at the very last moment. Me? I'd be in that line with everyone else, having my hair and beard checked for lice. And me? With a beard? Now that would be a fun side adventure. Sadly, we don't have time for that in this chapter, though, who knows, maybe we'll save it for a future spin-off. Come to think of it, in Titanic, Jack is just a nobody. No fine clothes, no fortune, crammed into steerage with 3 other men. Meanwhile, Rose reclines in a first-class suite the size of a small apartment, complete with ocean views and a private balcony in the ship's VIP wing. And yet, somehow, this broke artist outshines the millionaire fiancé, Cal Hockley, the Pittsburgh Steel heir who already holds her hand in engagement, and steals Rose's heart as if wealth and status never mattered at all. How does he do it? From today's perspective, Jack could easily be considered a grandmaster-level pickup artist, qualified to have his own YouTube channel, a massive Instagram following, and maybe even a book deal. Title? Easy. How to draw her like one of your French girls, the Jack Dawson method. So what's his secret? Let's see if the techniques that worked a century ago could still pass the test of time. Number 1. Appearance is everything. You can't have love at first sight if you don't like the sight. Leonardo DiCaprio in his 20s was outrageously charming. No wonder he kept showing up on top 15 most handsome men in the world lists, year after year. A slight wink could make your heart flutter. A gentle smile could melt it completely. Renee Zellweger as Dorothy Boyd sums it up perfectly in Jerry Maguire with her now iconic line, "You had me at hello." The truth is, Tom Cruise didn't need that long, heart-melting, "you complete me" monologue. The whole 5-minute speech was unnecessary. With someone as hot and magnetic as Cruise, Dorothy had already said yes in her heart the moment he appeared in the doorway. So yes, a cute face worked in 1912, and it still works today, whether it's Jack Dawson on the deck of the Titanic or Jerry Maguire in a living room in 1996. Now, let's not start a fan war over who's cuter, Leonardo or Tom in their 20s. Otherwise, we'll be here forever, and I'll end up writing Chapter 3.75 In-Flight Reverie continues, yet again, turning this into a full-blown trilogy. Number 2. Praise, and plenty of it. Compliments are free, yet they've always been the true currency of romance. In Titanic, Jack proves it again and again with Rose. One of the most memorable moments comes during a quiet conversation on the deck, when he looks at her and says, "You're the most amazingly astounding woman that I've ever known." Who wouldn't want to hear something like that? It's flattering, yes, but it goes far beyond appearance. Jack isn't just admiring Rose's beauty, he's recognizing her spirit, her curiosity, and the way she sees the world differently from the shallow high society people around her. It's one of the most direct and heartfelt affirmations he gives her, and it's exactly the kind of sincere praise that helps him win her heart. It was like tapping out Morse code straight to the heart. No wires, no translation, just an instant connection. A recognition of her worth that made her smile in a way no diamond necklace ever could. And here's the secret of Jack's success. He had no fortune, no title, no mention to offer Rose. What he did have was boyish charm, quick humor, and a steady stream of genuine praise. Together, they worked like Mario grabbing a superstar. Suddenly, he was invincible as Super Mario, racing past every obstacle, even Cal, with all his money and status. Jack's praise wasn't just a line, it was a lifeline, and that's what won him her heart. The remarkable thing is, what worked in 1912 still works today. A century later, praise hasn't gone out of style. Technology shifts, fashion changes, but the power of a sincere compliment remains timeless. Whether you're standing on the deck of the Titanic or swiping right on Bumble. Number 3. Doing something unforgettable together. Do something truly memorable together, and you'll never forget each other. Take that bow of the Titanic scene. Jack leads Rose to the rail, hands steady on hers as he guides her to stand on the edge. He's behind her, not in the creepy stranger way, but in the "I've got you" way. The wind sweeps her hair back, brushing against his face. For a moment, they move as one. Rose stretches her arms wide, excited. "I'm flying, Jack, I'm flying." And for those few seconds, she is. Then comes the kiss. Not forced, not awkward, just perfectly timed. The kind of moment you can't script without it sounding cheesy, yet somehow it works. A textbook example of couples who adventure together, stay together. After that, her heart was his, because honestly, what girl wouldn't want an experience like that? Standing high above the sea, breeze in your hair, dolphins racing in the wake, strong arms around your waist. Even with gale force wind, you wouldn't be afraid. Not when the man you love is holding you steady. Together you can face anything, even the chasm between a penniless artist and a girl with a private balcony suite on sea deck, by the way, with ocean views and a personal promenade. No wonder it became the movie's most iconic image. Romantic adventure worked in 1912. It still works now. But here's the thing. Not every memorable shared moment belongs in the Romance Hall of Fame. Some belong in the "What Were We Thinking" museum instead. Case in point, the spitting scene. Yes, technically it's also something special they shared, though not one I'd recommend for anyone's first date. In the movie, Jack shows Rose how to spit like a man, leaning over the rail. It's light, silly, oddly bonding, but also a terrible idea in real life. Why? Because outside of cinema magic, it's unsanitary at best and a health risk at worst, especially in a world only recently emerged from the shadow of COVID-19, where thermal screenings still glare at us in airports. Add to that the law. In Australia, public spitting can still earn you fines of up to $500. And frankly, even if you've got Leonardo DiCaprio's 1997 heartthrob face, a string of spit dangling from your chin is not the look. Imagine if, in the bow scene, Rose turned to kiss Jack and saw a sticky drop still clinging there. Yikes. That's not romance, that's a fear factor challenge. She'd need more courage to kiss him than to leap across the gaping social canyon between private promenade suite and bottom bunk in steerage. In 1912, Rose's mother had vowed to squash Jack like a bug after seeing them together spitting. Fast forward 100 years, and a modern mom wouldn't just frown. She'd march into your date, kidnap her daughter on the spot, and have a lawyer file a restraining order keeping you 10 kilometers away. Moral of the story: choose your special shared experiences wisely. Sea breeze on the face? Yes. Spit on the face? Absolutely not. Number 4. Showing your confidence. Confidence is the best outfit. Rock it and own it. Jack is totally confident. He walks into every interaction with quiet self-assurance. Even when he's surrounded by first-class wealth, fine china, and etiquette that probably demands 3 different forks just for the salad, he doesn't shrink, and he doesn't puff himself up to look important either. His confidence isn't about bragging, it's in how he carries himself. Take the scene on the promenade. Rose is wrapped in layers of first-class elegance. Jack strolls beside her in his simple clothes, hands in his pockets, talking to her like they're equals. No tiptoeing, no exaggerated charm, just easy, genuine presence. Or the famous dinner in the first-class dining saloon, surrounded by polished silver, crystal glasses, and tuxedos worth more than his life savings. Jack still leans back in his chair, tells stories about fishing in Lake Wissota, and raises a toast to making it count. No pretense, no visible nerves, just Jack relaxed, real, and impossible to ignore. These days, nothing attracts like confidence. It's the secret ingredient that makes people feel safe, curious, and willing to follow your lead. Just look at Elon Musk, often in nothing more than a black t-shirt and jeans, yet when he talks about colonizing Mars, investors line up to back him. That's confidence at work. And with 14 kids and counting, it seems the same strategy works just as well in romance as it does on the launch pad. For a nobody sketch artist like Jack, with all these buffs stacked in his skill tree, he's arguably more of a pickup artist than a sketch artist. No wonder he wins Rose's heart so easily. Now, back to my own journey. Me, an actual nobody sketch artist from Melbourne, imagining what it would be like to travel to Tokyo in the 1920s. Without Leonardo DiCaprio's good looks or silver-tongued charm, what would life be like for me in steerage on a Titanic-style voyage? Okay, let's begin in the morning. No Ritz, no Café Parisien. So where am I going for breakfast? A steerage feast. Down on F-deck, tucked near the stern of the ship, was the third-class dining saloon, my culinary kingdom for the journey. Nothing fancy, but it had its charm. 2 big rooms divided by a wall, one for single men, the other for families and women. We sat shoulder to shoulder on long wooden benches, eating off enamel dishes at plain tables. No tablecloths or silver spoons here. Meals came in shifts, since there weren't enough seats for everyone at once. Stewards brought the food in bulk, scooping it out onto plates like a school canteen. No menus, no waiters, just simple, hearty fare meant to fill us up and keep us going. It wasn't elegance, but it was warm, well-fed for the fare we paid. Breakfast, a steaming bowl of porridge, thick, sticky, barely sweet, 2 slices of bread with butter melting slowly, maybe a boiled potato or a slice of smoked herring, a mug of strong, bitter tea, and if the steward felt generous, a spoonful of marmalade. Dinner, the main meal of the day, rice soup to start, then thick slices of roast beef drowning in gravy, with sweet corn and boiled potatoes on the side. A dense biscuit, a wedge of plum pudding swimming in sauce, fruit, if any had survived the journey. Supper, cold meats, pickles, cheese, stewed figs with rice, thick bread, weak tea, no creme brulee, of course. But there was flavor, there was comfort, and it was enough. A day in steerage. Mornings start early in third class, the creak of bunks, the shuffle of footsteps. I splash my face with cold water from the shared sink at the end of the corridor and head up to the deck for a breath of sea air. Our slice of deck isn't grand. In fact, it's barely a slice at all. But the wind is free, the sky is endless, and the sea doesn't check what ticket you hold. Out here, nobody cares if you've got a private promenade or a bunk wedged under a pipe. The horizon is the same for all of us. I bring my sketchbook and capture the faces around me. A mother and baby wrapped in shawls, 2 brothers leaning over the rail plotting their future in New York like they already own half of it. Sometimes I trade sketches for stories, cheap portraits, free gossip. When the chill sets in, I head for the third-class general room. On the Titanic, this was our multi-purpose everything room. Lounge, nursery, games hall, you name it. Tucked away on sea deck near the stern, with plain pine walls and teak benches, it wasn't luxurious, but it beat staring at the inside of your bunk all day. Unlike first class, where parties are scheduled and orchestrated after dinner, here we dance whenever the mood strikes. 3 men pop open a bottle of beer. That's enough to start a celebration. Someone plucks a fiddle string, and suddenly the floorboards transform into a stage. Tap dance, line dance, circle dance, it doesn't matter. The room comes alive. We clap, we stomp, we dance. Everybody joins in, Irish, Italian, Swedish, it makes no difference. The language of stomping is universal. And then, there she is, Rose, standing in the doorway like an angel who accidentally took a wrong turn at the grand staircase and ended up here, in our noisy, joyful little paradise below deck. I rush to her, and before anyone can blink, we're twirling under the amber lights, so hard it feels like the music itself is holding us. A reel flows into a jig. We stumble into steps neither of us knows, inventing our own dance as the chaos spins us faster. The tune grows wilder, the room blurs, and still we keep laughing. The music pauses, our eyes meet. No words, no speeches, just pure joy, ecstasy, and the deep, quiet gratitude of having found each other at last. Then the next song strikes its first note, and she does something extraordinary. With a grin, Rose slips off her shoes and climbs right onto the table, her skirt swaying as the crowd erupts in cheers. Rose dances with the music. Her face glows with fire, for love, for freedom, for everything she has been holding back. And then, just for a moment, she rises on her toes, lifting herself as if she might take flight. It isn't ballet, it isn't rehearsed. It's raw, untamed, her stance for freedom made flesh. She is free, finally. Could an elegant upper-class girl truly fall for a third-class dreamer? Would they have found their happily ever after if Titanic had never kissed that iceberg? I don't know, History doesn't grant us rewrites, and no one can glimpse the future with certainty. But in this moment, none of that matters. In this moment, our laughter is real. Our hearts are in sync. The dreamer and the soul who for the first time has allowed herself to dream and to be free. Closing the curtain. At night, I lie in my bunk and listen to the hum of the engines. No maid, no Turkish baths, no punch ronaine. But I'm surrounded by breath and hope. Steerage wasn't luxury, but it was filled with community and possibility. We all looked ahead, to the shore, to a new life, to a better future. Jack once stood at the bow of the Titanic, arms wide, shouting, "I'm the king of the world!" Pure joy, pure hope. Nowadays, you can't stand on the nose cone of the airplane and do that. Well, you can, but you will be immediately arrested for violating civil aviation regulations. Still, back then, 100 years ago, you could stand at the very front of a ship, let your voice ride the wind across the ocean, sending your dreams ahead of you, to wherever the ship was going, to a future that just might be brighter. Third-class cabins were small, but the dreams, enormous. The journey wasn't just about crossing oceans, it was about crossing into a new life. A century ago, first class could cost 200 to 300 British pounds. That's more than a whole year's salary. A third-class ticket might cost 50 British pounds, still a quarter of a factory worker's annual income. But if you were brave, you paid it gladly for the hope of something better. Today, from Melbourne to Tokyo is a mere 10 hours. What once took 4 to 6 weeks is now achievable in a single day. And yet, somehow, the sense of wonder remains. We are very lucky to live in the 21st century. I whisper it to myself. Very lucky indeed. Then I scroll through the in-flight movies. I browse through the classics, and of course, there it is. Titanic. I press play. As the familiar score swells and the ship glides into a sunset of memory and myth, that old ache stirs again. Jack. Rose. The necklace, sinking through cold, endless water. I close my eyes, and in my mind I'm back at the bow. Wind rushing past, arms wide, voice carried out across the waves. Sending my dreams ahead of me, just as voyagers did a century ago. No matter their ticket class. Aboard a floating city breaking waves, chasing horizons, crossing an endless sea, to wherever the ship was going. Toward the place they longed for. Toward a brighter tomorrow. The hum of the engines fades into the steady breath of the cabin around me. No more weeks at sea, just hours in the air. Very lucky indeed. And with that quiet comfort, I let the sea take me into sleep. Thank you for staying with me through tonight's bedtime mumble. It means so much to know I'm keeping you quiet company at the end of your day. I hope this little story brought you a touch of calm and helped soften the edges of your thoughts before sleep. If it did, you're always welcome to come back, whether to this chapter or to one of my other bedtime mumbles. Think of these videos as a gentle place you can return to whenever you need it, tonight, tomorrow, or any evening when your mind feels a little too full. Here you can always find a story, a smile, and a bit of peace to carry you into dreamland. If you'd like to join me for the next chapter of our journey, please consider subscribing to this channel. And don't forget to tap the little bell so you'll be gently reminded whenever a new story arrives. Good night. Have a sweet and wonderful dream.